Hello, I'm Marcus D'Anthony and welcome to Session 1 of this Power and Presence course. The main learning goal of this session is to introduce the concept of the deep self and to complete the 6 deep questions activity. And you'll also meet your soul reflection in deep meditation and glean wisdom from him or her. You'll also meditate upon 6 deep questions which will help you clarify the values of your deep self, then record your insights in your workbook. And you'll also begin to consider what your authentic story might be. So let's begin Session 1. Exploration. Your deep self. Don't waste your time living someone else's life, Steve Jobs implored a captivated audience in his famed 2005 Stanford commencement speech. With well over 40 million views on YouTube alone, it may be the most watched such address in history. You probably get the meaning of Jobs' words the instant you hear them. They cut to our core because we all intuitively and experientially know what it is to be true to ourselves. And conversely, we all know what it is to fall away from that ideal and betray ourselves. Because we have all done that too. That knowing is the intelligence, the power that can guide us to shape our deep selves. To create an authentic life story as individuals and to create deep futures as societies, we have to ask deep questions. What is it that is most important? What is most vital about the future? What does it mean to be alive? What is it that moves us and why? What does it mean to be human? And what is humanity's most noble relationship to nature and cosmos? Are we merely biological organisms destined to live and die, then return to dust? For we are all comprised of biological and physical matter. We are all the dust of stars. And then some. For we are all conscious. We are life. I'm a futurist, so naturally I like to talk about the future, but the discourse on the future cannot merely be about making better machines, building flying cars, or creating a less lame metaverse than Mark Zuckerberg's current version. Nor can it be just about living more comfortable and satiated lives. We don't want to amuse ourselves to death, to use the language of Neil Postman. Instead, we must think deeply about how we want to live, how we might rise above our personal, cultural and biological shortcomings to become something nobler, greater even. Can we achieve our highest potential as individuals and as a species? I think there's something ineffable, something spiritual about that. It's something that can't quite be captured by words or the analytical mind. It has to be felt, and felt deeply. And this brings me to the subject of the deep self. The deep self is your most authentic, lived expression of yourself. One that honors your deepest intuitions and your most genuine values. It implies that there are ways of living and being and behaviors that are true to who we are, and there are ways of living and being that are not. The latter occurs when we fall out of alignment with our deepest intuitions about how we should be living, being, and behaving. The phrase deep self might suggest to some that there is really only one way to be and to live, and as if there's a divinely scripted you that you are meant to be. But that's not really what I think is happening with our lives and ourselves. And just as an aside, I write self with a capital S when I'm referring to the deep self. Conversely, I write small s, big E, big L, big F with a small s when I'm referring to the ego or the mind. Okay, that's a gnome you can see there, but close enough. I like this slightly humorous way of assigning the ego the stature of an elf. The deep self has integrity. It is able to maintain its wholeness, its center, its essence. It isn't easily splintered, fragmented, or distracted. In relation to people, it means they know who they are, and we're not easily shifted from that awareness. In other words, we know how to stand in our power. Even if such a person experiences disruption or imbalance, it usually does not take them too long to recenter themselves, to find themselves again. Yet all too often, we give our power away. We give it away to other people, to political leaders and movements, to institutions, to media and social media voices, to our families, and to our social, ethnic, and cultural tribes. And we give our power away to our own minds, to our thoughts, beliefs, habits, and feelings, and to our stories. That's a lot of giving away of power. A hell of a lot. Now, just imagine what it would be like if we instantly, or even slowly, stood up and reclaimed all that power. What would our lives look like? What would our society and institutions look like if many of us did it together? Power, as I define it, and as typically used in this course, is knowing who you truly are. I saw the angel in the marble and carved until I set him free. Michelangelo once famously said, "Learning to stand in your own power is an art form that we develop by crafting the marble stone of the small s self to reveal the divine agent that you truly are, the deep self." But to fully realize the deep self, we need to disentangle our psyches from the narratives that we've unconsciously accepted, including those which have been imposed upon us by others, our families, our teachers, our cultures, our societies, and our increasingly intrusive information systems, our machines. When a child develops self-consciousness, he or she may decide that there's something fundamentally inadequate about itself. Our parents are only human, and were not always there for us. None of our mothers and fathers was perfect, nor loved us unconditionally, for that is probably something beyond any human. Most parents at some time will project their issues onto their children, and some will become abusive. Some very abusive. The child will tend to internalize that and believe that they did not receive the love and attention they needed because there was something wrong with themselves. They feel shame. And then, as adults, they will tend to believe that they're not deserving of love. So they may then go on the hero's quest to find out who they really are. In slaying dragons, they may get to vent their rage against the world and to prove to themselves that they are worthy of love. Then they may get to marry the princess or prince, and perhaps then they may finally say, "I made it." Though we often use the masculine term and pronoun, the hero's journey is something that most of us embark upon, regardless of gender or sexual orientation. Indeed, I suggest that it's a journey that we should embark upon, as it is by moving through the world, first this way and that we gain a greater sense of our limits or strengths, and ultimately, if we're open enough to our deeper nature, our deep selves. The journey of self-discovery of the deep self is the hero's journey, or, to be more precise, the deep self is what we discover when we realize that what we seek is already here. And yet the journey is not to be dismissed. The journey itself can be a wonderful thing. If you sit in meditation and persist long enough, a very deep presence may unfold, and then a vast opening to something that is beyond words. That is the infinite nature of spirit, both boundless and timeless. No action that you undertake in the world, no matter how heroic, can deliver that knowing. And whatever story we weave, it's but a passing one. When you develop the capacity for embodied presence, as we shall explore in later sessions, and when you spend sufficient time in silence, you begin to experience yourself beyond the narrative of story. You will come to understand that much of self-story is like a straitjacket which grounds an eagle, when soaring flight is its true nature. In true peaceful presence, you may also come to know what it means to be a spiritual being, having a human experience. And within that expansiveness, you will sense your deep self. The deep self is therefore something much deeper than a story, than an identity based upon worldly achievements or the roles we play in society. It's about developing the right relationship with these things, as the Buddhists would like to say. I prefer to call this process conscious relationship because it is foremost about bringing consciousness to the relationship you have with yourself, with your mind, with your body, and then with the world. From what I've written above, it may seem like developing a deep self is just like Michelangelo chipping away at the marble to reveal the flawless angel that he perceived therein. But that's not entirely correct. It's true that there are authentic qualities and characteristics that we need to bring forth into our lives if we wish to be true to our deep selves. But there isn't only one true me to be unveiled. The deep self isn't ordained by God. You, as architect in your life, have much say in how that self and its journey unfolds. Think of it this way. The deep self is the marble, but you are Michelangelo. You can sense what is to be created from the stone. There's an image or vision you have, one grounded in profound intuition. But the precise interpretation of that vision has a range of expressions. The essence of the deep self is not something entirely precise or concrete. It consists of innate values, a sense, sometimes specific, often broad, of which paths to tread, which friendships to cultivate, and which to let lie fallow. What words and emotions to honour as authentic and empowering, and which to leave unspoken. Your wisdom journey is to develop a sense of what words and deeds expand consciousness and which lead to a contraction of the spirit. But there's no precise self and no precise path, already set in stone from your moment of conception. As you move through this course, you will be introduced to the 5 pillars of the deep self. The first pillar is embodied presence, or the ability to connect deeply to the body as the doorway to the present moment. The second pillar is mental and emotional responsibility, the capacity to witness the thoughts and feelings that arise from the mind and the world, and to assume responsibility for them. The third pillar is integrated intelligence, which is your ability to draw from a reservoir of intuitive knowledge in any given moment. The fourth pillar is digital wisdom, which is your ability to develop a conscious relationship with technology in the digital age. And the fifth pillar is wise action, and this is your ability to make empowering choices, drawing on the wisdom of your deep self. In the rest of the session, you'll begin to clarify what your core values are and what your preferred story is. For we cannot say that the deep self should merely be a felt experience. We need to consciously clarify what it is that we truly believe and what we truly stand for, who we truly are. The Tao that can be named is not the true Tao, said Chinese mystic Lao Tzu 2,600 years ago. And the deep self is similarly ineffable. And yet it's crucial to be able to articulate it, to give it an approximation at the level of mind, such that the intellect can come into alignment with that. Thus it is that the embodiment of the deep self integrates the mind and the spirit, the intellect and the psyche. As we all move from childhood to adulthood, our story begins to take shape within us. According to many psychologists, much of that narrative is formed within the first few years of life. Your sense of self and self-worth is already well established by age 7, although later life events may alter it somewhat. If your parents valued you, spent time with you, and met your essential needs, chances are that your sense of self is positive. If you are neglected or abused physically or psychologically, your sense of self has probably become diminished. You will likely carry trauma. This story of self-development would probably be supported by most psychologists today, at least to some degree, and I believe that it represents an important understanding. But I also believe that there is a great deal missing from it. On my own journey, as I developed my integrated intelligence, I came to see that personal biography is not the only source of our self story, with a small s. If integrated intelligence is real, then our minds and our small s selves must have been and remain influenced by multiple consciousness fields and human experiences outside of our present individual lives. These external factors include the consciousness fields of those we live with, including friends, family, professional, social, and political affiliations, and ethnic and religious groups. Yet consciousness structures are not simply limited by the passing of time. I believe that the past is always present to some degree, at least that part of the past which has not been resolved and integrated. Ancestral trauma, individuals and groups, trail behind us like the long shadows of evening, as do the previous lives that we have lived in different bodies, in different times, and with different identities. There's something ineffable that persists across lifetimes, and I refer to this as the soul. What also persists are the vestiges of emotional experience from those previous lifetimes. In a sense, we're all walking museums, carrying the resonance of lives long lost, both ours and those of other humans who have lived before us. The collective unconscious is invisible, but real. Yet, it must be stated that this supra-rational context is not merely a limiting factor in the development of our souls. We also subtly inherit the memories of the successes of our ancestors, their triumphs, their healings, and their learned wisdom, and that of all humans who ever lived. And we can potentially draw upon that to some degree. This is the gift of integrated intelligence. I believe that this shared learning is a central part of how human collective consciousness evolves over countless millennia. It's not possible to precisely determine where such influential consciousness structures begin and end. That's something far beyond what I, or probably any other human, can possibly know. But nor do we necessarily need to know. A broad sense of your tale, including its barely conscious stories and beliefs, is all that is required for you to integrate the shadow and to embody your deep self. If you can connect with such feelings and come to know your soul story without believing in it, then you can heal. You don't need to read your entire soul history page for page. All that you need to know is already here, waiting for you to sense it, to feel it. In the end, it's the felt sense of your psyche and its emotional content in the present moment, however it presents itself, that leads you towards healing and grounds you in the deep self. Being present with strong feelings may not be easy, but it is relatively simple. Ultimately, your deep self transcends all these soul stories and consciousness structures. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's beyond them. It is your journey through life and through lives that allows your soul to learn and to grow. Not this, not that, but this. The journey is how you acquire wisdom. It's how you learn to light the darkness of your own soul and then to cast light upon the world. Our self-image is mostly developed unconsciously and is taken from both what happens to us during our formative years and the way we interpret those events. Given that when we're young, we have little capacity to self-reflect or manage our own minds, we can say that this self-image is effectively delivered to us. We don't choose our self-concept. Yet decades after the child has grown, that little kid is still in there somewhere. Your job is to find that child and bring him or her home. This has always been the context of our human spiritual evolution, but as psychologist Abraham Maslow pointed out long ago, most humans who've lived have never had the luxury of being able to explore self-actualization. Our ancestors' life expressions have been largely limited by the necessity for them to focus on more basic needs, such as survival, economic necessities, personal and family welfare, career development, and so on. So, if you happen to find yourself in a position where you can explore expansive psychological and spiritual paths, you are a blessed human within the greater context of the history of human civilization. What an opportunity that is. You are truly blessed. Yet, as we shall explore in the sessions to follow, though many of we humans today have an opportunity to develop the deep self, the situation at this moment in history is complicated by one very great obstacle that has emerged. A double-edged sword scything its way through human civilization. And that barrier is technology, and in particular, the complex information systems of the digital era. For these virtual landscapes are littered with pervasive virtual trap holes that you could stumble into if you don't watch your step. Those traps may lead you far off course, and onto false paths laid down by someone else, someone who will inevitably not know what your authentic needs are. And their purpose may well be that you serve as a foot soldier in the online wars that actually have little or nothing to do with your deep self. In short, in the digital age, we must be careful that our digital selves are aligned with our deep selves and our true needs. The question that we must therefore ask is this: is your online digital persona a betrayal of your deep self? In other words, are you a digital fraud? Now, I'm guessing that the last time you visited Facebook, Twitter/X, Instagram, or another large online platform, that the system didn't ask you who you really are. And I doubt that much of their content is designed to help you develop the noblest expression of your life. Conversely, how much of that content and their algorithm-driven culture is actually taking you further away from your deep self? In this session's meditation to follow, and in the written activity, I'm going to get you to reflect deeply to check whether your social media feed is making you faithful to yourself or a fake. And then I'm going to outline why it's so important to take back your power from the machines. And this will include several practical tips that will help you to do so. First, let's be clear about one thing. Big Tech is very interested in you and your online habits, so much so that they track just about every digital move that you make, from the ethnicity of the people in the photos you upload, your religious and political positions, and even your spelling errors. But the problem is that they aren't so much interested in what's in your heart as what's in your digital wallet. By herding all of us into online tribes of like-minded folk, often with common enemies, they get to rake in more advertising revenue and munch the popcorn while the tribes beat the shit out of each other. Or just watch cat videos. This is what Shoshana Zuboff calls surveillance capitalism. Now, let's take a deep breath and let go of learning for a moment and move on to our meditation. Meditation 1. 6 deep questions. The questions I'm about to ask you will help you to check to see if the relationship that you have with your mind or your spirit is deteriorating as a result of your engagement with online systems and online others. And most crucially, is your head full of ideas that are not actually your own? Are your thoughts actually implants? From my perspective, identifying and honoring your deep self is perhaps the most important task in life. And to understand that, you have to notice when your online behavior is misaligned with who you really are. This very simple and short meditation will help you to clarify this. It simply involves answering these deep questions so that you can reflect on whether your online life is aligned with your core values. So, find a private and quiet space where you can relax deeply. Sit comfortably, or alternatively, you may lie down, but be mindful to stay alert even as you enter a deeply relaxed state. You will soon hear 6 deep questions. Each question will be repeated once. There will be a pause of about half a minute before the next question. Relax deeply and allow any answers to come to you in any form that emerges, such as feelings, images, sounds, memories, and so on. Don't worry if no immediate answers arrive, as your deep mind will be processing that awareness over a period even after this meditation. After the meditation, you will have the opportunity to further reflect in the written activity. So, here are the 6 deep questions. Imagine that you're walking outside on a cool but sunny day, across an ancient courtyard. You move forward towards the entrance of an old palace. Walk up the old steps and step into an open entrance with a high ceiling. You find yourself walking down a long hallway of the Grand Palace, and from the decor, you know you are in ancient times. The hallway is wide with a high ceiling, the temperature cool and comfortable. The lighting and ambience is warm and calming. After some time, you approach a high double doorway with 2 large doors at each side. You push the doors open and find yourself in a large room with a wooden floor and high ceilings. The windows are large, reaching high above your head on all sides, allowing the soft light to fall into the room. You hear the doors close quietly behind you as you enter the room, but feel relaxed and safe because you are the only person there. You notice a large mirror on the opposite side of the room and move forward. As you approach the mirror, you see someone reflected in that mirror. That person looks like you, but you realize immediately that it represents your soul, the wise and ancient part of yourself that transcends space and time. This image we will now refer to as your soul reflection. Beside your soul reflection, there's a small child holding your soul reflection's hand, and you know immediately that this is the child you once were, your inner child. Both your soul reflection and your inner child look at you with complete and unconditional love. Now you step forward without resistance into and through the mirror, gently emerging on the other side, feeling safe and protected. You find yourself merging gently and blissfully with your soul reflection, feeling warm and completely loved and accepted as you feel the consciousness and wisdom of your soul reflection become you. You look down and see the child beside you, and you feel his or her hand holding yours with complete trust. And now you look up and turn to look back into the mirror, now from the opposite side, and see your current self looking back from the large room you entered not long before. You feel completely loving and accepting of your current self without judgment. Now your current self begins to speak, even as you watch him or her. They have several questions to ask you, which they repeat, and you now allow yourself to sense any insights or answers to the questions, slowly using the deep intuition of your soul. You may speak to your current self if you like, but it's not strictly necessary, as they can sense everything that you can sense telepathically. Your current self asks the first question. Do the online web spaces I frequent and the conversations I have online, including anonymously, reflect the most noble and wise version of myself? Do the online web spaces I frequent and the conversations I have online, including anonymously, reflect the most noble and wise version of myself? You now have about half a minute to sense any answers to this question. Your current self now asks a second question. Are my thoughts and actions online really my own? Or have I become possessed by the agendas of other people and organizations? Are my thoughts and actions online really my own? Or have I become possessed by the agendas of other people and organizations? Current self asks a third question. Is the person I am today someone that my 5-year-old self would be proud to have become? And you can allow your inner child to answer the question if you like. Is the person I am today someone that my 5-year-old self would be proud to have become? Your current self asks another question. Who could I be if I let go of the focus and narratives that consume my online experience? Who could I be if I let go of the focus and narratives that consume my online experience? Now you hear another question from your current self. What are some more empowering values and self-stories that I could express today to truly embody my deep self? What are some more empowering values and self-stories that I could express today to truly embody my deep self? Now, your current self asks a final question. Why don't I just live those values and stories now? Why don't I just live those values and stories now? Your time with your soul reflection and your inner child is coming to an end for now. You now feel yourself moving back through the mirror and connecting fully with your current body. Turning again towards the mirror and standing before your soul reflection and little child. You pause a moment to give thanks for the wisdom you have received. To say that you will be back again when the time is right. It's now time for you to go. If you wish, you may take your little child with you if that feels right. Bow in gratitude and turn around, walking back across the Great Hall towards the double doors. Pushing open the double doors, you return along the Great Corridor and towards the exit door ahead. You push open the exit door and feel the sunlight upon your face. Walk across the ancient courtyard to the point where you began this meditation. And when you're ready, you may open your eyes. You might like to take a short break before moving on to the written activity, but it's recommended you keep the break short. No more than about 5 minutes, as you will need to recall your experiences in this meditation. Written Activity 1. 6 Deep Questions. Now that you've completed the meditation, take some time to write the answers to Activity 1 in the Power and Presence workbook. These are the same questions as in the meditation you just completed. Take your time. Maintain a relaxed and meditative mind and allow the insights and feelings you gained during the meditation you've just completed to inspire your written answers. It's not strictly necessary to recall all these insights, nor even to write exactly the same ideas in the written activity. Just let those insights guide you, because your deep mind will be continuing to formulate answers, including in the future, next few days or weeks. See you again soon in session 2.